you mentioned you will never give out your copy, and I agree that you should never give out your copy. But what are the best practices or what are your principles when you write a copy? You can talk about that?
Yeah. Well, and I don't give out my copy because I care if anybody else uses it. Like, it's not that at all. It's just no copy I ever write is the same, number
100%.
one. So that's part
And
of it,
I have a
right?
quote. I have a quote, and this is like I said this to someone when my lead magnet was giving away all the information for free and
Yeah.
just let people run with it. I would give them an entire playbook how to do cold outreach. And someone commented me and said, like, you should not be using this as a lead magnet because you are losing clients. And
Yeah.
my response to him was, you can always steal an artist's brush, but you cannot steal his imagination. So
Exactly.
if you are just trying to give out that painting to someone and say, like, paint exactly like this, they would never be able to achieve greatness. So
Right.
I
And
am
unless we have
100%
the
with
same
this.
client, yeah. And unless we have
Yeah,
the same client selling the
yeah,
same thing, it's not going to work, right?
correct.
So that's part of it. And I think part of it is we don't ever send the same copy more than once.
Yeah.
So
What's
at
your
the end of the
process
day,
like? Yeah. What's your process like when, let's say, for example, tomorrow you have Adobe coming to you and saying like, hey, promote my this business. So what
mhm.
is your process like? How do you think like how to write the copy for Adobe or what are the people I'm sure you also consider who you are targeting while copywriting.
Mhm.
So what does the process look like or what are the best practices or principles when let's say Adobe signed up with you. Now what happens next?
Yeah, so two things I've come to realize. Number one is I think copy is only 20% of the whole equation. I think the most important 80% is, does this solution, does Adobe PDFs match the person that I'm introducing it to, right? And just to use that as an example, right? If I reach out to someone who doesn't use computers in their business, maybe they're an AC technician, and
Yeah.
they get appointments on their phone, and maybe they have Service Titan, which is, some kind of software that does all their invoices for them, and they just don't need PDFs, then trying to sell them Adobe makes no sense. And I
So
like to tell people, like, imagine you have, like, there's a lot of things going on in the world, right? So imagine you have two world leaders, and the way politics works, right, is world leader over here talks and the news reports it, and world leader over here talks and the news reports it, right? But when you get those two world leaders in the same room, things happen, right? And that's your 80%. That's the problem you're, or the solution you're selling, and getting that person in the right room. We do that via email, right? So that's your lead generation. And it's also your understanding of the ICP of your client. So I need to understand what Adobe wants to sell, how much it costs, what's the return on that investment based on how many emails I need to send, who are the right people that make purchasing decisions, which at a Fortune 500 company, the person who makes the purchasing decision is drastically different than a company that has two founders and three VAs. So you need to understand all that to get the 80% right, right? And then you need to get them in the same room, and that's the email, right?
so
The other 20% is what you say when you're in the room, right? So if these two world leaders get in the room and they talk about flowers all day, then nothing happens. But if these two world leaders get in the room and they talk about the issues like the wars that are going on across the world, and they come to conclusions, affect the impact, then you get the entire 100%. The same thing happens with cold email. If your messaging is good, so back to Adobe, if my messaging addresses a pain point that someone that needs Adobe uses, I might get a reply. If my messaging is professional and not salesy, I might get a reply. If I offer a lead magnet that helps them better understand why they should use Adobe, I might get a reply. If I send a video at low volumes, that might get them a reply, right? Like, all of those things could trigger a reply. But if I piss them off, if I, write a 50, sentence email that they don't have time to read, I might not get a reply. The other aspect of it, and it gets even more complicated when you think about the fact that if I send the same exact email 25 times a day across 200 accounts, then I might want to get a reply, but they never see it because it's in their spam folder. Or if I put a link in there and the company thinks that that might be a phishing attack, then they may never see it, right? So there's so many variables to that 20%. But for me, copy is pretty simple. It needs to be relevant. It needs to address whatever you're trying to introduce, and it just needs to be the 20%. You need to be talking about the right things. Sometimes people are going to engage because you're just lucky. At the end of the day,
100%. Yeah.
you're 100%. Yesterday they fired somebody, or yesterday their contractor quit, and now they need this person and your solution. Yesterday they went in to use Adobe's whatever, Google's PDF version or Google's thing, and it didn't work, and they couldn't sign a contract, and their boss got upset, and they were like, "Go find something else like Adobe." There's so many things that factor into all of that you don't necessarily can control. But I personally, and I've always believed in, you send professional messaging, you're respectful. I don't believe in being over salesy, and you do it in a way that offers some kind of value. And traditionally, you will get some engagement. It's the tweaks, the
Makes
ups
sense.
and downs of that get you more or less, right?
So to summarize this, personalize so that you actually hook the person on to read that email.
Yeah,
Talk about a problem, not random things. Like you mentioned, you can't talk about flowers when you're in the room.
yeah.
So talk about the problem, offer them a solution, a lead magnet, which makes them respond back to you positively.